There are people in this world who feel everything deeply. They walk into a room and immediately sense tension. They hear pain hidden behind laughter. They absorb emotions that nobody else even notices. These people are often called empaths. And while empathy is a gift, many empaths are slowly destroying themselves because they were never taught one important truth. You can care about people without carrying their emotional weight. Some of you have spent years believing that being kind means always being available. You answer every message immediately. You tolerate disrespect because you do not want conflict. You keep explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You sacrifice your peace just to avoid disappointing others. And over time, your mind becomes exhausted. Your emotions become heavy. Your energy disappears. Not because you are weak, but because you have no boundaries. Emotional intelligence is not just about understanding emotions. It is also about managing them wisely. It is knowing when to help and when to step back. It is understanding that protecting your mental and emotional state is not selfish. It is necessary. One of the most important boundaries every empath must learn is this: stop over-explaining yourself. Many people spend years exhausting themselves because they feel the need to explain every decision they make. They explain why they are tired. They explain why they cannot help. They explain why they need space. They explain their boundaries, hoping other people will finally understand them and approve of them. But the truth is, constant over-explaining often comes from fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. And for empaths, this fear becomes even stronger because they naturally want harmony in every relationship. An empath often carries the emotional burden of everyone around them. They notice changes in tone, energy, and behavior immediately. Because of this sensitivity, they become deeply uncomfortable when someone is upset with them. So instead of calmly standing by their decision, they begin explaining themselves repeatedly. They try to soften every boundary so nobody feels hurt. They apologize for needing rest. They apologize for saying no. They apologize for protecting their peace. But emotional intelligence teaches something powerful. Not everybody needs an explanation for every personal decision you make. There is a difference between healthy communication and emotional permission seeking. Healthy communication is calm, respectful, and clear. Permission seeking happens when you desperately want validation before honoring your own needs. And many empaths unknowingly live in that cycle for years. They say yes when they want to say no. They stay available when they are emotionally exhausted. They tolerate disrespect because they fear confrontation. Then slowly, resentment builds inside them. Their energy becomes drained. Their peace disappears. Not because they are weak, but because they abandon themselves trying to keep everybody else comfortable. One of the greatest forms of emotional maturity is learning to say simple things without guilt. I cannot do this right now. I need space. That does not work for me. These statements do not require a long emotional presentation afterward. People who genuinely respect you will respect your boundaries even if they do not fully agree with them. Unfortunately, some people become uncomfortable the moment you stop over-explaining. Why? Because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. They were used to unlimited access to your time, emotions, and energy. When you suddenly become clear, calm, and emotionally firm, it forces them to adjust. This is why setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. You are not only changing your behavior, you are changing relationship dynamics that may have existed for years. And some people will resist that change. But protecting your mental and emotional health is not selfish. Constantly sacrificing yourself to avoid upsetting others is not kindness. It is emotional self-neglect. Emotionally intelligent people understand that being misunderstood is sometimes unavoidable. Not everybody will agree with your choices. Not everybody will approve of your growth. But your peace cannot depend on constant approval from others. When you stop over-explaining, you begin reclaiming confidence. You begin trusting your own judgment. You stop treating your needs like something shameful that must be defended. And that shift changes everything internally. You become calmer, stronger, more emotionally stable, because real confidence is not loud. It is quiet certainty. It is the ability to protect your peace without needing everybody to understand your reasons. And for every empath listening, this lesson is life-changing. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can care deeply about people without giving them unlimited control over your emotional energy. You can love others while also respecting yourself. The moment you stop over-explaining your boundaries is the moment you begin valuing your own emotional well-being as much as you value everybody else's feelings. Empaths often grow up believing that love means sacrifice. They believe being a good person means always being available, always listening, always helping, and always carrying the emotional pain of others. Because they feel emotions so deeply, they naturally want to comfort people who are struggling. They want to heal pain, solve conflicts, and bring peace into difficult situations. But over time, many empaths confuse compassion with responsibility, and that confusion slowly destroys their emotional health. There is a major difference between caring about someone and carrying their entire emotional burden. Compassion means supporting people with kindness, understanding, and patience. Responsibility means believing it is your job to fix their life, regulate their emotions, and rescue them from every consequence. And many empaths unknowingly become emotional caretakers for everyone around them. They absorb stress that does not belong to them. They spend hours trying to save relationships that only one person is fighting for. They become therapists for friends who never change. They repeatedly sacrifice their peace, hoping somebody else will finally heal. But emotional intelligence teaches a painful truth. You cannot heal people who refuse to heal themselves. Some individuals become comfortable depending on empathic people because empaths give endlessly. They listen endlessly. They forgive endlessly. They tolerate behaviors that emotionally healthy people would walk away from immediately. And while kindness is beautiful, unlimited emotional access becomes dangerous when boundaries do not exist. Many empaths feel guilty when they stop helping. They think stepping back makes them selfish or uncaring. But constantly rescuing others at the expense of your own mental well-being is not healthy compassion. It is emotional exhaustion disguised as kindness. You were never meant to carry everyone's pain. One of the hardest lessons emotionally intelligent people learn is that not every problem belongs to them. Just because someone is suffering does not automatically mean you must sacrifice yourself to save them. Some people repeatedly create chaos in their lives while expecting others to emotionally clean up the damage. And empaths, because of their sensitivity, often become trapped in these draining cycles. They answer late-night calls while emotionally exhausted. They absorb negativity daily. They try to motivate people who refuse to grow. They feel responsible for everybody's happiness while quietly neglecting their own emotional needs. Eventually, burnout arrives. An emotional burnout is dangerous because it slowly changes who you are. You become mentally exhausted, emotionally numb, irritable, and disconnected from yourself. The same empathy that once felt like a gift begins feeling like a burden because you never learned how to separate your emotions from the emotions of others. Real emotional intelligence means understanding that support has limits. You can guide people without drowning beside them. You can care deeply without becoming emotionally consumed. You can offer kindness while still protecting your mental peace. Healthy empathy requires boundaries. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow people to face the consequences of their own choices. Growth often happens through responsibility, not rescue. When you constantly save people from discomfort, they may never develop emotional accountability themselves. And this is where many empaths struggle. They fear that stepping back means abandoning people. But protecting your emotional energy is not abandonment. It is wisdom. You cannot continuously pour into broken situations while expecting yourself to remain emotionally whole. Strong empaths understand that their purpose is not to absorb everybody's suffering. Their purpose is to remain compassionate without losing themselves in the process. They learn to listen without carrying. They learn to support without sacrificing. They learn to love without abandoning their own needs. And once that balance is learned, empathy stops becoming emotional pain and starts becoming emotional strength. One of the biggest reasons empaths become emotionally exhausted is because they stay connected to negativity for too long. They listen to every complaint, involve themselves in every conflict, respond to every insult, and absorb the emotional chaos of everyone around them. Because they naturally care deeply, they often believe they must always remain emotionally available. But over time, this constant exposure to negativity slowly drains their peace, weakens their mental clarity, and creates emotional burnout. Emotionally intelligent people understand something that many empaths struggle to accept. Not every situation deserves your energy. Some arguments are designed only to provoke you. Some people thrive on drama and emotional reactions. Some conversations never lead to understanding because the other person is committed to conflict, not resolution. Yet empaths often keep trying. They explain themselves repeatedly. They replay painful conversations in their minds for hours. They try to fix misunderstandings that were never meant to be solved. And while they are busy carrying emotional tension, their inner peace slowly disappears. Protecting your energy begins with understanding that your attention is valuable. Where your focus goes, your emotional state follows. If your mind is constantly surrounded by criticism, anger, manipulation, gossip, and negativity, eventually your nervous system begins living in survival mode. You may feel anxious, emotionally overwhelmed, mentally exhausted, or disconnected from yourself without fully understanding why. This is why emotionally intelligent people learn how to step back from toxic emotional environments. They stop arguing with people who only want control. They stop defending themselves to individuals committed to misunderstanding them. They stop allowing constant negativity to enter their emotional space unchecked. And most importantly, they stop feeling guilty for protecting their peace. Many empaths struggle with this because they fear appearing cold or uncaring. They think walking away from negativity means they are abandoning people. But there is a difference between compassion and emotional self-destruction. You can care about someone without absorbing their chaos. Not every emotional storm belongs inside your mind. Some people constantly complain but never change. Some repeatedly disrespect boundaries while expecting endless patience. Others project their anger and insecurity onto everyone around them. If you continuously expose yourself to these patterns without limits, eventually your emotional health suffers. Protecting your energy means becoming more intentional about who has access to your emotional world. It means recognizing when conversations leave you emotionally drained instead of emotionally healthy. It means paying attention to environments that create anxiety, stress, and emotional heaviness inside you. Emotionally intelligent people do not waste their peace trying to win every battle. They understand that silence can be more powerful than endless reaction. Sometimes the healthiest response is distance. Sometimes peace requires stepping away instead of proving a point. And this does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming emotionally wise. Empaths often absorb the moods of people around them without realizing it. Negative environments can deeply affect their sleep, focus, confidence, and emotional balance. This is why healthy boundaries are essential. You cannot heal while constantly surrounded by emotional chaos. Protecting your energy also means giving yourself permission to rest. Not every message requires an immediate reply. Not every conflict requires your involvement. Not every problem requires your emotional labor. Your peace matters too. The strongest empaths are not the ones who endlessly tolerate negativity. The strongest empaths are the ones who learn how to remain kind while still protecting their mental and emotional well-being, because true emotional intelligence is not about absorbing every emotion around you. It is about learning how to stay emotionally balanced in a world filled with noise, tension, and negativity. And once you master that skill, your empathy stops becoming a weakness and starts becoming one of your greatest strengths. Healthy boundaries change a person's life in ways most people do not realize. For empaths especially, boundaries are not walls built to push people away. They are emotional protection that allows you to remain peaceful, mentally clear, and emotionally balanced. Without boundaries, an empath slowly loses themselves trying to satisfy everyone else. They become emotionally exhausted because they spend their entire lives prioritizing the feelings, needs, and expectations of others while ignoring their own inner well-being. Many empaths fear boundaries because they associate them with rejection or selfishness. They worry that saying no will hurt people. They worry that creating distance will make them appear cold. So instead of protecting themselves, they continue tolerating situations that drain them emotionally. They stay in unhealthy relationships too long. They remain available even when mentally exhausted. They continue giving energy to people who never truly value it. But emotional freedom begins the moment you realize that protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. A person without boundaries eventually becomes emotionally controlled by everyone around them. Their mood depends on other people's approval. Their peace disappears whenever conflict appears. Their energy becomes tied to constantly pleasing others, and slowly they forget what it feels like to live calmly inside their own mind. Healthy boundaries break that cycle. They teach you that your emotions matter too. Your time matters too. Your mental health matters too. You stop believing that your value comes only from sacrifice and emotional labor. Instead, you begin understanding that self-respect is part of emotional intelligence. One of the most powerful forms of freedom is learning that you do not need to constantly earn love by overgiving. Real relationships do not require emotional self-destruction. Healthy people respect limits. Healthy people understand balance. Healthy people do not become angry simply because you chose peace over exhaustion. But the moment you begin setting boundaries, some relationships may change. People who benefited from your endless availability may become uncomfortable. Individuals who relied on your silence may dislike your honesty. Those who were used to controlling your emotions may resist your growth. This is where many empaths struggle emotionally. They mistake discomfort for wrongdoing. They think, maybe I am being too harsh, simply because somebody reacts negatively to a healthy boundary. But not everybody who becomes upset with your boundaries is being harmed by you. Sometimes they are simply losing access they were never entitled to in the first place. Emotionally intelligent people understand this clearly. They know that boundaries reveal the true nature of relationships. People who genuinely care about you may need adjustment time, but they will eventually respect your needs. Those who only valued your usefulness, however, often react with guilt, anger, manipulation, or emotional pressure. That is why boundaries create emotional freedom. They remove unhealthy attachments. They expose emotional imbalance. They allow you to finally breathe without constantly carrying everybody else's expectations. And something beautiful happens once you stop abandoning yourself for others. Your confidence begins returning. Your mind becomes calmer. Your emotions become more stable. You stop living in survival mode emotionally because you are no longer giving unlimited access to your peace. You begin choosing relationships more carefully. You become more intentional with your energy. You stop chasing validation from people who never truly appreciated your kindness. Most importantly, you finally understand that kindness and self-respect can exist together. You do not need to become cold to protect yourself. You do not need to stop caring about people. You simply need balance. Real emotional intelligence is not endless sacrifice. It is knowing when to give, when to step back, and when to protect your own well-being. Because true emotional freedom comes when an empath learns this life-changing truth. You can love others deeply without losing yourself in the process.